Next we will be creating the muzzle, and to do that we're going to be using our ivory yarn. So for round 1 we're going to start as always with our slip knot, and then we are going to chain 4 stitches. That is 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to make an increase in the second chain stitch from the hook. It's 1 and 2. Then we're going to make a single crochet in the next chain stitch, and in the last chain stitch we're going to make a 3 single crochet increase, which means we're going to make 3 single crochets in the same spot. That was 1, this is 2, and that is 3. As you can see, we're now on the other side of our chain. We're again going to make just 1 single crochet, and in the last stitch, which is also our first stitch, another single crochet. And that brings us to the end of round 1. For round 2, we are going to start by making 2 increases. That's 1 in each of the first 2 stitches. The first stitch is notoriously hard to get into properly. So that is increase number 1, which is 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. And then in the second stitch we make another increase, which is another 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Then we make just 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Then we are asked to make 3 increases, which means an increase each in the next 3 stitches. So that is increase number 1. In the next stitch we make increase number 2. In the next stitch we're going to make increase number 3. Then a single crochet, and in our final stitch we are going to make an increase. And that brings us to the end of round 2 of the muzzle. For round 3 we're going to do a single crochet followed by an increase, and we're going to repeat that twice. So first stitch, get a single crochet, second stitch gets an increase. That's 1 repetition. Then we go again. First stitch gets a single crochet, second stitch gets an increase. That's our second repetition. Next, our pattern asks us to make 1 single crochet. So the next stitch just gets 1 single crochet. We're then asked to do a single crochet followed by an increase, and to repeat that 3 times. So that's single crochet number 1 followed by increase number 1. Then single crochet number 2 followed by increase number 2. Single crochet number 3 followed by increase number 3. Then our pattern asks us to make 2 single crochets. That is 1, and then the next one again 1. And in our final stitch we need to make another increase. So that's 1 and 2. That brings us to the end of round 3 of the muzzle. For round 4 we're simply going to make 24 single crochets, 1 in each stitch of the round. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. My apologies for the miscount with 24. It's only 20 single crochets in this round. That brings us to the end of round 4. Round 5 is a short round. We're only going to make 2 single crochets. So it's single crochet number 1, single crochet number 2. Then we're going to make 1 slip stitch where we go through the stitch, hook the wool, pull it back through the stitch and through the loop on the hook. And then we're going to finish off with a second slip stitch. Now the muzzle we're going to sew to the head using the tail that is left over. So we do want to have a fairly long yarn tail so that we are able to actually sew the muzzle on. And we just pull it through as we always do and tighten, and that completes our muzzle. It's now ready to be pinned and sewed onto the head. Next we're going to be stuffing the muzzle and pinning it in place on the face. When we are going to pin it, we want to get it centralized in between the 2 eyes like that. But before we do that, we need to put a little bit of stuffing on the inside. You don't need to get it completely full at this point. You can add a bit more stuffing later, but we do want to get the basic shape, so we want some stuffing in there. As you can see, I'm using my thumbs to just push the stuffing in and to compress it a bit so that it actually fills that space. Now if I let go of the stuffing, it's just going to jump right back out, so I keep my thumb on the stuffing, take my body, turn my muzzle, and as I push it against the body, I quickly pull my thumb out so that the stuffing stays in place. Now we're just going to move our muzzle around a little. We want to make sure that it's perfectly centralized with the eyes. We don't want it more to one side or to the other. Just make sure that we've got it nice and right. There we go. You'll see it follows that top line of the stitching between the eyes. We're going to take our pins and just pin our muzzle into position. You want to make sure as you pin that you maintain a nice oval shape. Sometimes it's necessary to just reposition a little bit in order to get everything perfect. And there we go. Our muzzle has been pinned into place. So next we will be sewing it onto the head using invisible stitches. Once you've pinned it, please do check it from all angles, so look from the top to make sure that it's not sticking past to the right or to the left. Look from the side. You'll see it's a little bit pointing downwards at the angle. Look at it from the bottom, from the other side, and most importantly, from the front. The more angles you check from, the more likely you are to pin it into the correct position and to have everything nice and even. Next we will be sewing this on with invisible stitches. The main key to invisible stitches is to make sure that you're working under the muzzle, not next to the muzzle. If you work next to the muzzle, you're going to see your stitches. So when you go through the head, you want to place your needle so that it's just under the muzzle, like that, instead of next to the muzzle. And you just want to pull your yarn through and you'll see the stitch completely disappears. You also want to keep your stitches small, you want to keep them tight, you want to keep them close together. That is how you maintain a nice, neat sewing pattern and how you keep it from becoming visible and looking terrible. Most people don't enjoy the sewing section, myself included, but again, it's one of those little touches that makes a massive difference to the finished product and whether or not you are able to sell your toy to the general public. If you take your time with this section and you do it nice and neat, your toy will be worth a lot more and it will be much more likely to actually sell, because people like to buy work that has been done neatly and tidily. You can see as I'm moving around, I do take the pins out because I find that they get in the way of my needle that is doing the actual sewing. Go. You'll see I keep making sure that I'm working just under the muzzle, not next to it. And you can see as we are pulling tight, the stitch just completely disappears because I'm working under the muzzle. That's why we call it an invisible stitch. Even though I'm sewing with a completely different color from the head, you don't see them because of the placement of the stitches. Once you get to the eye, it can be a little bit harder to maneuver your needle through because the back of the safety eye gets in your way when you are sticking the needle in. Just use a little bit of patience and you'll manage to get it through. If it's too hard to pull it through, you can use a small pair of pliers just to help you get your needle through. At the top here, between the eyes, I make sure that my muzzle sticks to this line that I've got going between the two eyes. Again, by the eye, it's a little bit tougher. It's getting stuck a bit, so I just take my pliers and I use them to pull the needle through. Just gives you a bit of a better grip and a bit more maneuverability, and it makes it much easier. I find that's better than getting yourself frustrated. There we go. Do one more stitch. Okay. Now, at this point, we've sewn on most of the muzzle, but you'll see it's still a bit, it's empty. When I press, it just changes shape completely. So it's still understuffed, which means I need to add a little bit more stuffing. You'll see here on the side, I've left a little bit of a hole. I haven't sewed all the way around yet. And that little hole allows me to just push a bit more stuffing in there. And because my hook is quite long, I'm able to push the stuffing exactly where I want it all the way through. There we go, so we want it firm, but not quite as firm as the head and body because we're still going to be doing some needle sculpting here later on. So I'm happy with that level of firmness that I've got now, and I'm just going to close up this last little piece that I was stuffing through. Now, if you've sewn nicely around with small stitches and you've gone into every section all the way around, then your muzzle should be quite firmly attached by now. If your stitches are spaced a bit further apart than mine, you may want to go around a second time just to make sure that the muzzle stays in place and does not come loose easily. Once you are happy with how much your muzzle has been sewn on, you can just let your needle come out any random stitch in the head. Pull your yarn through, and we're then going to work our yarn to get to the same opening as this short tail that we left. So I came out of this hole, I'm going back into the same hole and pushing my needle towards the body, pulling the yarn through, so you'll see it disappears because it's the same hole. Now we're going to do that one more time, but this time we're going to come out at the same hole where the yarn tail is. Take our needle off, cut a little bit shorter, and then this is how I hide my yarn tails. I wait until I've got two of them, make sure they come out of the same hole, and then I knot the two of them together. I snip them off short. This way I can be fairly sure that my work is not going to be coming loose, and then I just push that knot back into the body to hide it with the back of the hook. There we go. As you can see, it's completely disappeared and you'll never be able to find those ends again. So don't tie off until you are happy with your sewing. But this is what you should have at the moment. Still looking like a little alien. There we go.